DCI for 2023 has ended and it was spectacular. This is only my second year following drum corps and I had a blast. Just like last year, the two events I went to were Rose Bowl and Big Loud and Live. I have already reviewed the Rose Bowl shows. I will link that video in the description and comments, and my stances on them are largely unchanged. Cinnamon and the cutouts are going to be some of the live music experiences that will stick with me forever. So today I'll be sharing my thoughts on the shows I only saw at Big Loud and Live. And before I start, I just want to say congratulations to everyone who marched, regardless if you got awards or not, you all were amazing. Let's start with what was the biggest surprise of the year for me, except for seeing the Mandarins live, and that is the Troopers. Wow, I completely fell in love with this show, and I was expecting nothing from it. To Lasso the Sun is, in my opinion, the most underrated show of the season. It is like nothing I have ever seen or heard before. I love the darkness behind the music, and the crazy thing is, this isn't even one of those show themes that's like trying super hard to be edgy. The whole story of the show is about a cowboy, trying to lasso the sun. It sounds like a freaking horror movie, and I am here for it. The intro is my favorite part. It is so sinister. Like, you could slip it into a haunted house atmosphere playlist and no one would notice. Oh, and can we talk about the props for a second? That sun is mesmerizing. The harmonica adds a really cool touch. This show is so innovative, and I don't think people are giving it enough credit. Now let's talk about one that I've seen a lot of love for on Drum Corps Planet, and rightfully so, Phantom Regiment's Exogenesis. Phantom Regiment isn't really on my radar like some other corps are, but I think this might be my favorite show of theirs that isn't Spartacus. It's smooth, it's stylish, and it even gets a little groovy sometimes, which is not a word I would ever expect to use to describe Phantom Regiment. I like that it includes all the cool drill movements and the big brass impacts that more traditional fans like, while still having more modern sensibilities to it. You can never go wrong with black and white, so the uniforms and props looked great on the field together. Oh, and trombones, baby. I don't know how controversial this is in the marching community, but I frickin' love trombones in band. Every DCI song I've heard with trombones is a banger. Why don't more bands use trombones? Speaking of bangers, here's a group that almost played one of my favorite classic DCI bangers, but then didn't. The Cavaliers in Where You'll Find Me. I didn't like this show, but I can recognize that I am not the intended audience. It celebrates the history and the legacy of the Cavaliers, and I know that people who are more connected to the Cavaliers than I am definitely enjoyed it. I'm one of those types of music fans that is super chill about people with differing opinions, so if you enjoyed it, I'm glad you did. Personally, I found it pretty forgettable, except for one moment at the ending. At Big Loud and Live, they do interviews with the show designers before the show, and the one for the Cavaliers said, well, we don't intend this to be a best of show, but we want it to celebrate the Cavaliers' greatest hits. Or something to that effect. I'm paraphrasing, don't quote me. And I'm sitting here in my theater seat thinking to myself, Niagara Falls and Frameworks are my two favorite Cavaliers songs, and it must be amazing, especially to hear the Niagara Falls finale with this theater audio quality. But I'm like, I don't think it's gonna happen because bands rarely play a song twice unless if it's something special like a core song, which, not to get off topic, but I totally think they should repeat songs more. I would probably cry if I heard House Is Not a Home live. But anyways, I'm watching the Cavaliers show, everything seems pretty normal, we're building up to the end, and then they play the Niagara Falls riff. I'm doing a quiet little theater squeal, and I'm like, oh my god, they're gonna do it. I love this finale. It's one of my favorite songs to dance to. I'm bracing myself for the wall of sound, and it just ends there. I am not kidding when I said I shook my fist at the screen. I know a lot of Cavaliers fans appreciated the throwback, but for me, it's like if the Bluecoats were to play a song from Tilt again, and then just pack up and leave before the pitch shift. If there's one thing I will remember about this show, it is how it gave me hope and then denied me the right to headbang in the theater. Speaking of letdowns, the Blue Stars with Absinthia. I'm a Bluecoats girl, so the minute you tell me your show is based on a drug-induced hallucination, I am on your side. Especially after seeing posts on Drumcore Planet hinting that the theme may have caused some controversy. Well, if people are saying it's inappropriate for DCI, then it must be super shocking and experimental. It was neither of those things. There was a costume change, which is something I like. There were sort of stunts, which is something I like. But in the end, I still found it super disappointing. It just wasn't weird enough. Teaspoons and sugar cubes? Is that all you got? I've seen episodes of My Little Pony that were trippier than this. Or what about all those creepy nightmare scenes from old Disney movies? That would certainly make really interesting visual inspiration. This is just the musical equivalent to a movie that has a fascinating premise but absolutely botches the execution. Speaking of execution, Carolina Crown with the Round Table echoes of Camelot. Most people in this fandom seem to think that Right Here, Right Now was either kinda cool or they absolutely hated it. But I am the rare ride or die person that absolutely loves that show. I hear that they're doing a King Arthur theme, and to be honest, I was quite disappointed upon hearing the show announcement because I was like, oh no, it's gonna be super traditional. I'm really gonna miss the audience participation and those beautiful props. But once I actually sat down and watched it in the theater, I really enjoyed it. I love character-driven shows, and they absolutely nailed it here. The commentators were talking about how it was almost as if the lead guard soloist really believed he was King Arthur, and I think not just that, but the whole band seemed to really be getting into it. The whole thing feels like the world's biggest Dungeons & Dragons roleplay. And I think the shining example that proves how much Crown was dedicated to making the story as immersive as possible were the herald trumpets. They could have just used their regular trumpets to play a fanfare, but they went the extra mile. And another thing, I love all kinds of prop surprises, and I genuinely did not see the round table breaking apart coming. Speaking of character-driven shows that had a crap ton of stuff I did not see coming, the Boston Crusaders' White Whale. Oh, this had shocking moments from start to finish. I knew it was about Moby Dick, I knew there were going to be pirates and sea shanties, the rest left my jaw on the floor. First of all, the real-life whale noises. It's just another one of those, why hasn't anyone done this in marching band yet kind of moments. I also did not know that the whale was going to be represented by a guard member, which was really cool. That big hit when she gets stabbed with the harpoon is one of those classic Boston shocking moments. And then there was what was my personal highlight of the show, the whale tail. That was insane. I definitely gasped hard in the theater when I saw that. And then they follow it up with them carrying the sea captain's dead body. And of course we have The Whale Wins, which is one of my new favorite fandom in-jokes. It's as dramatic musically as it is visually. The sea shanties were so much fun. Wellerman and Shipping Up to Boston were great recognizable music choices. No one makes me lose my mind like Boston. I love it. I don't know how to segue into this, but now we're going to be talking about my least favorite show of this season. And I want to preface this by saying that I mean no disrespect to anyone who worked on the show, the marching members, or the fans of this band. I try to separate the judges' opinions from my own, but the fact that this show scored higher than a certain other show was the final nail in the coffin for this being my least favorite. If you haven't guessed already, this is The Cadets Atlas Rising. No, this is not about the uniforms. I thought they were fine, I thought they were stylish, but it is so boring to me both visually and musically. I can't hum or identify a single tune from this show off the top of my head. I love learning about mythology and religion. I would not have known this was the story of Atlas. I think this is the only show here that I didn't understand what it was about until the designer interview. And when he started talking about how it's really about athleticism and all that, it just felt really lazy to me. It felt like they just designed a show to tick off certain boxes with the judges and the fans, and then tried to tack on a deep meaning behind it. Once again, take my opinions with a grain of salt. Want to know what my two favorite Cadet songs are? Agnes D and Do Better. In case you're wondering, I do unironically like Do Better. It's not just because of the memes. I used to bash the Cadets 2017 all the time because I didn't fully understand it. It's grown on me a little since then. It's led me to discover the musical Mass, which has some really fun songs. I still think some of the imagery is a little off-putting if you've never heard of Mass. Regardless, I would much rather watch their 2017 show, even if for some reason they completely cut out Agnes, than this again. Come on, guys, you did a weird hippie show last year. And I am not trying to be a toxic DCI fan, but I am outraged that this took 5th place above Sinnerman. As a wise man once said, "Judges, are you watching?" Seeing that score almost made me want to go back into the marching arts, grow up, get a music education, get a job as a DCI judge so something like this never happens again. But I'm still comfortable with my dream of becoming a horror film director. Ayo, troopers, hit me up if you want some of that sweet movie royalties money. And now we're gonna go from my least favorite show to what is probably my favorite show of the year. I think by process of elimination, you already know who it is. I bet that you knew who it was before you clicked on the video. You probably had some money riding on this, didn't you? It's the frickin' Blue Coats with frickin' Garden of Love. Ever since I started listening to DCI music, I have described my personal taste in music and style and art as like the Blue Coats, but goth. And the Mad Men show designers actually freaking did it this year! This show emotionally connected to me in such a way that I might have to make its own separate video. But you don't want to hear about that, do you? You want to hear about those catchy songs that hit harder than marchers running over a field judge? I know it drew a lot of criticism, but I really liked the narration, the way it repeats, and the way it fits in with the rhythm. I Saw a Chapel will be stuck in my head until I am in the ground. I don't know how many of you can relate to this. I don't know how tolerant this fandom is with neurodivergent people, but as an autistic person, that really felt like the audio equivalent of me stimming when I'm excited. It feels so good, it feels so right, and nothing that anyone can say can stop that. The music is so much fun. It is exactly what I mean when I say marching band songs you can dance to. I know nothing about brass, I come from a percussion background, but in my humble little opinion, Bump is one of the greatest brass moments of all of modern DCI. I'm not usually a such and such should have won blah 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 person, but they should have won the brass caption for that song alone. The various interpretations of the theme are so fascinating, and I think they're all valid, and I all relate to them in some way. If someone were to ask me to pick a piece of music to represent myself, I would say Garden of Love. It can sound crazy, abnormal, unapproachable, even morbid at times. But if you're a brave and kind soul that can look past appearances and behavior, you'll find that I just want acceptance and platonic love and to find my own place in the world. For me, the priests, chapel, and gates are society itself. They say, you have to look like this, think like this, and act like this to enter our chapel, and so they don't let me in. And then when I find a place that makes me happy, they treat me like crap because I'm not a part of the group that they barred me from in the first place. This narrative hits me on every level. I can relate this to my own marching band experience. I can relate this to my experience as a girl, as an autistic person, as a goth, as a fictosexual. It works on so many levels. I lived my whole life searching for the Garden of Love, hoping that it even exists in the first place. That's why this show is so perfect. It's fun, touching, upbeat, bright, great to dance to, but also fills me with these deep existential thoughts. I always talk about how much I love deep marching band show concepts, but Garden of Love hits different in all the best ways. And now comes the time where I personally rank my top 5 favorite shows this season. Number 5, To Lasso the Sun by The Troopers. Number 4, White Whale by Boston Crusaders. Number 3, The Cutouts by the Blue Devils. Number 2, Sinnerman by the Mandarins. And number 1, Garden of Love by the Blue Coats. Thank you all so much for listening. What an amazing marching season all around. making unforgettable memories for me and so many others. And now, it's time to post stupid off-season memes.